Welcome to the MML Podcast, episode number 4. My name is Alex Bennett.
I am Robin Bennett.
And we are here back at it again for another one. Got another interesting topic today, one we discussed and wanted to go into depth further here. Discussing, is music lessons or is learning an instrument easier or harder now than it has ever been?
Yes. That's the short answer.
Good answer.
That's the short one.
No, I thought, I got to thinking about this the other day and I was like, I think on its surface, most people would say like it's got to be easier, right? Because we have so many resources in front of us today.
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Like you still have to put in the work. You still have to go through the struggle.
100%.
And so that's still hard. Like
Right.
the hard things are still hard to get through. Like I sit down and I want to play a song and I get frustrated doing it over and over again. Like that's still hard.
Yeah.
The time that you put in never changes. You know?
Yeah, it's one of those things like so I was recently working on some business stuff I had, and the kind of the coach, the guy who I was talking with was saying, you know, when you create a service, right? It's either you do the work, we do the work together, or I do the work for you, right? And the most lucrative of those things is I do the work for you, right? You don't have to, the less work that the other person has to do. And so obviously, like in our case with music lessons, it's like there is a lot of hand holding. There is a lot of we guide you to the right place, but there's no, this isn't, you can't just like download the information and the dexterity into somebody's hands or into somebody's brain and have them do it. Instead, there's just, we can feed you the information, but the only way
we can guide you through repetitions.
But the only way that it's really going to sit is through that hours invested.
Right, that you do portion. It's mostly you do it.
Right.
You have to do the work. You have to put in the hours. You have to put in the time of, the repetitions and over. We can guide you.
Yeah.
And that's about it. You get half an hour to an hour.
Yeah. But I mean, like on the one hand, like I was just out of curiosity, I went on to like ChatGPT the other day.
Of course.
And I typed in, I was like, can you build me a first month's program for guitar? Just to see like what it would come up with.
Oh, okay.
Like what's like an introductory, half-hour lesson, for 4 weeks, that type of thing. And just to see what it would come up with. And it came up with, I would say, a reasonable lesson plan.
Okay.
I don't, not to brag, I like mine better, but it still, like, it was reasonably well put together.
Sure.
And it had reasonable expectations, and it was even rather encouraging in its in its feedback and how
tone, its representation.
It was, yeah.
It's learning.
Yeah. So it was interesting because it just makes me think like anybody could just type that in on their phone because you can get ChatGPT on your phone now too.
You have an app?
Yeah. Yeah. You haven't noticed me using it at the gym? I've been using it at the gym. Yeah.
I'm reading at the gym. I'm not paying attention to you.
Fair enough. All right. So, yeah. So you can just type it in on your phone and all of a sudden you've got a lesson plan there for like your first month of guitar playing.
Right.
So
it's
like
the execution of it though.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So it's like on the one hand, there's more resources than there have ever been to learn an instrument. Like at this point, you really have no excuse. If you want to learn something, you just type it in on your phone and it pops up in, less than 10 seconds, right? But the thing is, I think nowadays because there's so many options.
It's the instant gratification thing.
That's part of it, for sure. Like it's really because learning a musical instrument is not necessarily an instant gratification anything more. It used to be, back in the day, like something I feel like that was a much more like you would get much more instant gratification out of it. But I feel like by today's standards, maybe that's not the case. But on the other hand, too, though, it's like there's a million different ways to learn it now. I mean, you don't have to go online for very long to see like there's Play It With You apps, and Rocksmith was a thing for a while that you could play on guitar, stuff like that. I just don't know. I think it's really easy for people to kind of like bounce back and forth between ideas where it's like when one thing doesn't work out,
and they'll just cut it, go with the next one.
Go with the next thing. Yeah. And then eventually after you've tried 4, 5, 6 different things, it's like when you when you hear people talk about like quitting smoking and they're like, well, I tried the patch for a while and then that didn't help, and
now
then
I'm gonna do the gum.
Yeah, I did the gum and that didn't work, right? And it's like when it's like, well, just granted, there's a lot of psychology that goes into it. And for the record, I've never had to quit smoking, so I don't know how hard that is. I've heard it's very difficult. But, it's obviously the correct answer is, well, just quit. Just stop smoking. But there's a lot of psychology that goes into it, though. You're not your own slave. You can't just tell yourself what to do.
Yeah, I think kind of building on your point earlier where you said the instant gratification is different today than it was back then. I think if you go way back, people were looking for things to fill their time. Like, I am bored. How do I fill my time? I will play my instrument for a couple of hours. Where now you have to carve out the time to practice. Like, oh, I don't have any time anymore. It's filled with all these other things that are vying for my attention. The TV, the phone, family, work, my hobbies, all these other things are vying for your attention.
Yeah.
That you have to carve out space to practice your instrument, to think about practicing your instrument. And I think that's a big portion of it too. Where it's getting harder, maybe psychologically, to find doing the instrument thing pressing. Like, it's important for you to be able to do it. So sometimes it does feel like you're literally carving away your time. You're sacrificing your time to sit down and play your instrument for 15 minutes. So I think that's part of the psychology of it, which is wanting to do it, being like, hey, I get to play my instrument, instead of, oh, I have to. So I think we've done some posts on that where it's like changing your mindset to, oh, finally I get 10 minutes, I can play my instrument, as opposed to, oh, crap, I gotta sit down and play my instrument for 10 minutes.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, and I think going into mindset too, it's like identity is a big thing. I think a lot of people feel like they have to play their instruments in order to consider themselves a musician.
Sure.
Whereas I think a lot of people have it backwards. I think it's you call yourself a musician, and that's what makes you want to play.
Sure.
I know for me, like, I'm at the point now where if I don't go to the gym, I feel weird. I had a stint here just a little while ago where I was sick for a few days, and it felt so weird not being able to. Yeah,
I had that with when I was down for surgery and stuff.
Yeah,
Getting back into it was so hard.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think you adopt the identity first, and I think once you adopt the identity, then I think the behaviors follow. I think you have a different outlook on it. It changes that from what you were saying before, where it's like the I have to
versus I get to
versus or just this is what I am.
Interesting. I don't have a lot to say about that. That was good. That's it. Cut it.
Yeah. As far as like time is concerned too, I know that's been something that you and I have been talking a lot about lately, which is just like time
Planning
management.
out your day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never been good at time management.
Me neither. It's
a big
something
thing.
I'm actively working harder and harder to do. I know the big thing for me lately has been having a much more consistent, like writing down your calendar.
Yeah. How far down do you, like, how subdivided do you make your day? Do you go hourly? Do you do like half hours? Do you like plan your day down to the minute? Like,
I go down to about 15-minute increments.
Okay.
Is what I go down to right now.
Sure.
And it's
Scheduling your bathroom breaks?
no,
Not quite that far?
Not quite that far, no. But it's again, it's another like mindset thing. It's not prioritizing your calendar. It's
calendaring your priorities. That's what you said to me the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it doesn't mean that you don't change your schedule. It just means that when you change your schedule, you understand what you're giving up. And so, so I've had to, I know for me, as life has gotten busier, this is, I've had to make more of an effort to schedule, like me time, us time, family time, things like that, because those things are important. And that also goes into, hobby time, right? Whether that be getting back to my instruments or have an excuse to sit down and play a video game from time to time.
Right.
Making sure I have time to get to the gym. And yeah, it's a clarity thing almost. Like I feel more comfortable working on the things that I'm working on because I don't feel like I'm constantly going like, oh shoot, I have to go and catch up onto this thing. If you remember back when we first started doing like the budgeting thing, when we were doing like the Dave Ramsey stuff, right? It was that their big thing when they're budgeting is not that your budget is a limitation on what you can spend, but it's more like giving yourself permission to spend.
Yeah.
Because
I remember when we got through that and then it was like, wait, I get to spend $200 every month.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah. You give
like, holy crap.
You don't feel guilty about it anymore. And I know for me too, I recently started doing that with just like my diet and whatnot too. We've been kind of doing a little like weight loss challenge amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
And for the first half, I was really struggling with something
getting all the portions and everything.
Getting the portions and everything right. And then it's like all of a sudden you go and you have a snack or you go and get something extra that wasn't in the plan. And then you add it up at the end of the day too, and you're like, oh shoot, like I was over by like 500 calories or something like that. Or
so then you just reverse engineered it, right?
Right. So now it's the opposite. Now instead what happens is I put in my little app that I have, I put in what I'm going to be doing versus what I'm going to do after the fact.
Sure.
And then I feel better about when I look at it and I put in everything and I'm like, okay, I hit all my goals for this and I have 300 calories left over.
I'll have a scoop of custard.
Right. So now I can have a scoop of custard if I want to. It's like you've given yourself permission to be able to do that.
Right.
And it's a much different mindset. It's also a lot less tempting too to get off of the wagon when you just say like, well, this is the plan. We're just going down with the plan versus when it's like a little bit more loosely defined. It's one of the, it's like if you're, and this was a business thing, but like, if you're not measuring it, it's not important to you.
Sure.
And so, it's real easy. Like we all have our routines and our habits and like there's certain things we just know that just work because we, it got us this far. Right. But if you want to achieve a new goal, something that's not a part of you now, then you have to like adopt a new identity because you're gonna have to change. Like this is the person you want to be. It's not the person you are now.
Right. I remember having to do kind of the scheduling thing in college because I was not getting into the practice rooms like I wanted to. So that's something that I had to do. I had to like print out a physical copy of my schedule, and I had to block like every day. Okay, where are times where I'm near the music building where I can carve out time to run over there and spend at least like half an hour in a practice room. So I had to like physically draw in blocks where I'm like, no, I have to be in the practice room. You know, that cliche about musicians, sorry, I have to practice. You know, we'd have no social life because we're constantly practicing. But I had to schedule that in because I wasn't getting it in. And my teacher was like, why didn't you record your practice? And I'm like, because I didn't do it. You know? So definitely scheduling it in. I'm a visual person, so like having the physical piece of paper that I can touch and actually draw in a block where I'm like, this is practice time.
Sure.
Was helpful.
I get that. I don't blame you for that because I'm in the same category. I like the physical more too, but I'm just finding now that the convenience of like there's certain things that just happen every week at the exact same time. So it's like for a while I get tired of punching in like, okay, lunch for me on Monday is at 11 a.m. It's like, well, it happens at the same time every single week. So why do I keep punching in the same thing over and over again?
I don't know. For me, it's just the repetition. Kind of, I got to get bonked over the head with the repetition. Again and again.
Sure.
It's like the ugly stick.
Again and again. Yeah. So, like, I guess thinking back to what we kind of started this conversation on, which is it easier than before? Like, is there a tool that you can think of or something that doesn't have to be like new, it doesn't have to be like in the last, 60 days or even in the last like year, but just in the last like 10 years, things that have made it easier to help get better at your instruments, just stuff that's been a huge improvement, whether that's stuff that you're doing with teaching or stuff that you're doing with yourself.
Yes. When I was teaching, classroom teaching, there was a year in the middle there, my second out of 3 years at the same school. I wasn't technically a classroom teacher. I was more of a specials teacher. So I had more time to myself. But then also one of my duties was I played for chapel every week. So I was getting hymns to play. And that forced me to learn new songs every week. It didn't have to be perfect, but it had to be playable and people had to be able to sing with it. So out of that like necessity, I was playing new stuff all the time. I was getting better at sight reading. I was getting better at practicing, just being like, all right, I had that one, and then just moving on to whatever was next, whether or not it was so polished or whatever. I think the consistency of I was practicing multiple hours every day, to be able to play this long of a song.
Sure.
So then there were things that I learned to do to be able to play it. I got quicker at analyzing what the chords were, so I could just play something else with my left hand and do the melody with my right hand.
Sure.
Or if I was feeling confident enough, I'd go for all four parts all the way through. So that was a really helpful year for me to just realize, just sight read every day.
Sure. But what I was saying was like, is there a technology or something that has come out in the last like 5 to 10 years or something that you've utilized that's made your life no, you don't have one?
I don't have one.
No?
I don't even...
I mean, I can definitely think of a few of them. I mean, I know, like, for example, in, like, the church world, instead of having to print out our pages all the time, now everybody's just got iPads that you can, just pull stuff up on really quickly, and you can have a real quick collection. I was never that kind
of person.
Sure.
I mean...
I know you were physical. The physical copies is what you liked.
Yeah.
I know for me, one of the first ones I think is, so when I first started playing, if I wanted to play with a song, I would just have to pull it up in like iTunes, or maybe I'm dating myself here a little bit, but like Windows Media Player. And I would just go back to the same spot, go back to the same spot over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Whereas like nowadays, if you look up a song, first of all, you just look it up on YouTube. Every song's on YouTube, right?
Okay, yeah, I look up songs and I play with them on YouTube.
Yeah,
okay.
and if it's really giving you trouble, you just go to the little gear icon, and it has a thing that says playback speed, and you can lower it down. You know, you can go to custom, and you can go like 5% at a time. You can go at like 0.9 speed.
On
0.85,
YouTube, does
0.8.
that change the pitch of it?
No.
That's awesome.
No. However, if you do want to, like I know within Google Chrome, like I have an extension that is a transpose button. So you can transpose songs up or down.
You're so much better with the tech stuff than me.
You can get really fine-tuned with it too. Like you can have it go in, you know, half steps and whole steps, or you can have it go like fine cents. So if you have a weird song from like the 60s where they're like, we recorded that at 436 hertz, you can bump it up to 440 hertz, and you can get that right.
Oh, sweet.
You know, so you can do stuff like that. You know, so that's a really good one. Obviously, too, there's a whole bunch of apps and stuff nowadays. Like I've been pushing a lot lately on our
I use a
portal.
metronome app.
Sure. Yeah, everybody's got an app.
That, I guess that I use a lot more often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they even have specialty metronome apps. Like I really like Benny Greb, who's a fantastic drummer. You should go check him out. He has a metronome app that you can use called Gap Click.
Okay.
And with Gap Click, you can have it so that way it skips either certain beats in the metronome or entire measures. So if you're trying to like practice a rhythm or a timing or a beat, you can
it'll count you in and then tell you when you should have been done.
Well, or you can set it so that way, like, okay, it gaps for one measure, or it gaps for 3 measures, or it gaps for, or you could make it too so that way that the rhythm changes from measure to measure. So you can say like, okay, this one it does quarter notes, and then this one it syncopates and does the eighth notes in between.
Sure.
And then your job is to like, you got to keep it going despite the disruption in the beat going on behind you.
Okay.
Because when you play live, like there's all sorts of subdivisions and beats and stuff going on behind you.
I learned to ignore stuff because I have siblings.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. But like, I'm just saying.
Is there an app that's like will disrupt you like a sibling would?
Well, you could definitely get this one to do really weird stuff,
Yeah.
I know Soundbrenner has a metronome app that syncs up with essentially like a little disc that you can either put on like your waist or on your arm.
Does it vibrate?
It does.
I used one of those in high school when I was the drum major.
Mm-hmm. And you can sync them to a whole bunch of groups of them too. So you could have one person who like sets the tempo. They can tap it on their arm.
Oh, that's cool.
And then it syncs with everybody else like via Bluetooth.
Oh, mine was not that fancy.
And then everybody syncs up with, so now you have this invisible metronome.
All synced.
Yeah, they're all synced. Yeah, they all on this invisible metronome that goes on, on people's arms
mine was
and stuff.
just, there was a buzz clip that you could plug into Dr. Beat. Mm-hmm. And I would just have Dr. Beat in my back pocket and then the buzz clip so that I could get the beat from whoever was standing behind me. and then set it. Yeah. And then that's what I would conduct it.
I think Soundbrenner even came out with like a smartwatch that you could use that would sync.
I think I remember that. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing a commercial for that.
I was really tempted to get it.
Were you really?
I was just the nerd inside of me.
I thought about it, but it never got past the, that'd be interesting. It never really got past too much of that.
And that was kind of the problem. Is like I put it away for a week and then I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah. Well, now that you're like, what technology? I use a smart board in my classroom.
Sure.
So that kids could like draw on it or manipulate, like, here, I'm going to move this to the third space, when we were learning the staff. YouTube, I use YouTube.
Yeah.
I still used a CD player. I still used a tape player.
We use, you and I know as well, because we use the portal, online for how we organize things with our classrooms, right? So it's like when you get done, we can upload PDF files and audio-visual files, and you can put those inside so that way, students can check those out externally, and then if you want, you can use it to log your practice hours and things like that. So, and it'll give you updates as to like, okay, how good was practice this week versus last week, or this month versus last month, or things like that. You can see.
That would be a really good like next challenge. Like once we're done with the fitness challenge, if we're like, okay, we're both gonna be committed to getting better at, like, we pick a song, and you've got like a month.
Yeah. Well, we are.
You're so much better at doing it quicker than I am, though.
What do you mean?
Like when you got the Big Toys gig and you had to learn all those songs, you learned it so quickly and you were able to play them really well. And for me to play one song on piano takes me, like, if I want it to be good, takes me like a month to play it like decently.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know what it is with that. I mean, this is actually something that I've been spending a lot of time trying to think about myself, is like what is it that lets me learn some of those songs quickly? Is it like my theory knowledge? Is it the way that I practice, like my ability to sit and focus just on one task over and over and over again? Is it the way that I just like remember and memorize stuff? Because I am a huge proponent of memorization. There's a lot of things you can fake. That's
and
not
you
one of
learn
them.
a lot of stuff by rote,
Just by ear. Yeah. And it's not uncommon for me too. Like if I can't find, like we just had a song that a student came in and they were like, I want to learn the first 100 digits of Pi song. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, why not? Okay, so they came in.
Sweet. I love that.
Well, it turns out it was, a little bit of, I don't know if parody is the right word, but and this is still killing me, so you're probably going to tell me what the name of the song is right now, but it's like the na 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 na
In the Hall of the Mountain King?
Thank you, In the Hall of the Mountain King. I couldn't think. Yeah, so they took that melody, right? But I couldn't think of the name of the song at the time to look up a melody for it. So I just figured it out right there, right? And I did it in like 2 minutes.
Are you pretty good at like the relative pitch where I could sing something and you could pretty quickly like find it on your guitar?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of all those things. You have a mastery over your instrument, right? Where if you don't get the right pitch immediately, you're at least close. So you've got pretty good relative pitch. But then your knowledge of, the theory, the ear training, everything that you've done in your past culminates into, the perfect storm of being able to do those things.
Yeah, I'm also really big on patterns too. Like I'm really good at...
You recognize it.
Yeah, I'm really good at recognizing patterns, and I'm also just kind of obsessive in my mindset where it's like I've never been big on I'm going to go and learn all this different stuff at one time for the sake of saying I'm going to learn like 50 songs. It's like, no, we're just going to get really good at like one thing. The first ever song that I learned, good old classic Iron Man, right? Like I spent 8 weeks on that song, the first ever song that I learned, because I was obsessed with like, I can't play it if I can't play with the song. And so I would just learn that one riff over and over and over again. Now, that was enough, by the way, to get muted on Facebook. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Do you think that focusing extra hard on one song makes you learn it faster?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Like, I think...
What about, like, the burnout?
Well,
getting annoyed with the song, you're like, hate the song.
This is the battle that goes on with me all the time as a teacher, which is the psychology versus the theoretical best. Yeah. Because like you just... First of all, it's just impossible to do everything right away. When somebody comes into the studio for the first time and they've never played an instrument, they sit down and chances are they probably think they're doing like 2 or 3 things wrong when in reality they're probably doing like 100 things wrong.
Yeah.
And
You
and
don't
that's
want to overwhelm them.
yeah, and that's okay, right?
Right.
But you have to pick something new every single week to say, like, this is the thing that we're going to improve on.
It's on today.
This is the one. And obviously our job too as teachers is to figure out the one that's going to be the most impactful, right? Because
Sure.
chances are there's 100 things that they're doing wrong, but there's like 2 things that they could fix that would give them like a 50% improvement right then and there.
Right now. Yeah.
And so that's often what we do, right? So but not everybody learns at the same pace, right? Like we have some people
right. And not everything clicks.
yeah, I mean,
same.
Sometimes you get people who come in and they're like, I want to learn how to play chords, and it's like, okay, so the process of getting there, and this is something I've learned over time, because when I first had people come in, they'd be like, I want to learn chords, and then I'd show them chords day one, and then they would get frustrated because they'd get stuck there for 3 to 6 months and feel like they're not making any progress. And it's like,
Do you mean like chords versus just playing a melody?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Sure.
a bunch of notes at a time versus one. And
Yeah.
so in the beginning of my teaching career, it's like I'd show them, full open chords, 6-note chords or whatever where they're using.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, well, that was way too, they said they wanted the steak and then they got so excited and I gave them such a huge piece that they choked on it. And that's a problem, right?
Here's a 32-ounce steak immediately.
Right. Yeah. Open unhinge your jaw like a snake and see if you can swallow the entire thing at one
Gobble
time.
the whole thing. Yeah.
And I as a beginner teacher would just I just go with it.
Yeah.
And so then
I feel that pain. I'm still in there a little bit.
so then I had to learn okay, let's give them a smaller bite so they don't choke on it and die right off the bat, okay? So then I was like, okay, how can we simplify the chords? And so that was the next step is let's give people simpler chords to work on.
Sure.
This G chord, turns out we can simplify it into this, right? That's one way, we can make it so that way they only have to use one finger to play this chord, right? It's
Okay.
not the full version that you'll see in a book, but it will at least get you somewhere, right? Well, for a lot of people that worked, but for a reasonable amount of people, that was also too much.
Sure.
So then I had to learn how to break it down into smaller and smaller segments. And so, a lot of times for people when they're first coming in, I'm just I'm testing the waters like crazy right off the bat to try and get this immediate gauge of how much is too big of a bite versus how much is too small of a bite.
Yeah. I think that's the hard thing about teaching is figuring out how much is too much for me to throw at you.
Yeah.
I'm almost kind of at the spot where I'm a rambler, if you haven't figured that out by now. When I get on a topic.
I can't believe it.
I know.
Okay.
Crazy. So when I'm teaching, I think my bad habit is I'll be like, ooh, this. Oh, and then this will do it. And, until I kind of see this
Yeah.
thing going on. And I'm like, or you don't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
Or let's just focus on this one thing.
Yeah.
By
Somebody
then
told
I've
me
already freaked them out.
one of the very first business coaches that I ever hired was a business coach who was specifically for teaching. And this was a decade ago. And he said, the number one reason you'll get people to quit is not because you gave them too much, or excuse me, not because you gave them too little, it's because you gave them too much.
Gave them too much, yeah.
And so it's quite often we have to deal with the insecurity of the teacher where we're like, I don't know if they're getting enough value from this. I don't know if they're getting enough value. When, again, that's another one of those perspective things where you're to you, this seems really easy because you've been doing it for so long. But to them, it's such an astronomical leap,
It's a
because
culture shock.
Right, exactly. It's and then what ends up happening, I apologize that I keep using the gym analogy, but it just
fits really
fits
well.
so well. It's like the first time you go to the gym and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go kill
There's
it.
so many machines
and
here.
then you're so sore the next day.
Oh, okay.
Because you beat yourself up so much because you have all this energy. You're like, let's go. And then the next day you're like, I regret that immediately. And then all you think about, because you feel that high, that pump for the hour or 2 hours that you're at the gym, and then you feel that soreness for the next week. And so
or more.
the soreness outlasts
lingers the energy the fervor that you had for it in the first place.
Yeah. And so you just you kill your momentum.
You got burned.
Yeah.
You burned yourself.
Yeah, that's what a lot of teachers feel. Or not a lot of teachers, a lot of students feel, because teachers
you flew me too close to the sun.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
So
yeah, I get that.
Yeah, that's
what I'm still learning. I'm still adjusting and learning that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yep.
There's so much. It's a give and take in my own brain of sorting through what are some things to hit.
What's important.
Yeah.
And what should be held off for the next time. So yeah, I feel that. So anyways, all right. Well, I think that should do it for today.
That should do it, yeah.
I feel like we keep saying every time we're like, we'll keep our podcast to like 20 minutes. And the last one was like 40. This one's probably about a half hour, something like that. So
we need a clock timer.
We do need a clock timer. That's all right. We got so much to talk about. There's always so much to keep going on.
There's always more. There's always more analogies to make, more connections.
Yeah.
To be made.
Well, and as much as we teach our students too, I feel like we're learning just as much, if not more, than our students all the time. Oh my gosh,
all the time.
Yeah, so there's always something new and exciting that's going on. So, but anyways, all right. Well, that'll do it for today. We'll see you guys in the next episode. My name is Alex Bennett.
And I'm Robin Bennett.
And we'll catch you guys next time.